I'm doing a little bit of a different video today. I'm going to be doing a review of my Wonder Shoes Lems. I have seen a lot of reviews online of gentlemen doing the Lems reviews, but very few of women doing them. So I figured I'd give it a go. I've been watching reviews of these for a while before I finally decided to risk springing for them. I'm going to be doing a couple of different videos. This one is kind of a general overview of Lems, and then I'll do a specific review of my Lems Primal sneaker, and then a review of the Mariner. It's sort of like a boat shoe, like a Sperry topsider-ish moccasin cross. These have taken quite a beating, and today I was out in a wet garden working with these, but in a better life, these are sort of the boat shoe kind of things. These shoes are not made for people to cater for people with foot problems. However, I do have foot problems. I have a Morton's Deroma, and these have been wonderful. So the third video will be on using these when you have a foot issue, such as I do. So anyway, what are Lems? Lems are what's called a natural shoe. Sometimes they're called a barefoot shoe. Now, when I think of barefoot shoe, I think of that thing about, what was it, about 10 years ago, where people all looked like they were walking around in toe socks, and they come into a restaurant in these toe socks, and you say, hey, that person shouldn't be in the restaurant, they're wearing toe socks. And then you find out, no, they're barefoot shoes. They just go over your toes. And you think, well, that's weird. That's what I think of when I think of barefoot shoes. But actually, a barefoot shoe is a shoe with zero drop, meaning the heel is not higher on the inside than the toe. So you're walking flat as though you're barefoot, and it has room for your toes to splay out the way they do when they're barefoot. Well, why would you want your toes to splay out? When you are a baby, and you look at a baby's feet, or you look at the little footprints they took at the hospital, your baby when they're born, careful anatomical artwork is about to appear. Okay, a baby's foot is narrower in the back, and then the toes splay out, all right? And the reason a baby's foot is like that, well, partly they haven't used them yet, and partly it's because that's how the human foot is supposed to look. Now, over time, we wear shoes, and our shoes tend to be pretty tight in the toes. It sort of binds our feet. That actually looks like a raccoon's footprint. Hang on. There's a human footprint. You can tell because it has toenails on it. All right, so our feet get squished together, and we start to think that's normal. We get, as we get older, like I am older, you can start to get foot problems from years of having your feet squished together in kind of an unnatural shape. Now, certain muscles and tendons in your feet are trying to compensate for the fact you're not using your toes normally. What Lems do, all right, as I said, they have a zero drop. The heel is not higher than the toe, and the toe also doesn't have the spring in it like some running shoes have. You shouldn't be wearing a shoe like that unless you're running, and even then it's questionable. So they're very, very flat inside. They also have very little cushioning. I actually took the cushioning out of this. My other pair has the insert still in it. You can see it's actually still very flat. And the reason behind that is the idea is our feet don't normally need all that support. Think of it like when you break your leg and you need a cast for a while because your leg's broken. But there comes a point where you need to take that cast off and start to walk on the leg again. And if you don't, your leg will never be normal. So there's a time and a place for wearing a shoe with a lot of support, but there's a point where it may be better just to walk as nature intended. With the Lems, if you order them, if you get them, you should break into them carefully if you're not used to walking barefoot. Now, I walked barefoot a lot because it was a lot easier on my feet to walk barefoot than to wear shoes. But if you are used to wearing a heel or even a bit of a heel and you're used to having your toes bound, when you get your Lems, break into them slowly. Wear them around the house for about 15 minutes a day. Do that for about a week. Then add some time to them, and eventually you're going to strengthen your foot to the point where it's resuming a more normal shape. And I personally think this can help a number of foot ailments. There may be a number of podiatrists screaming at this video right now. There are also videos on Lems put out by podiatrists that strongly recommend them, so your opinions will differ. Now, the other thing about these shoes is they're very thin. Watch what I can do with this shoe. I can roll it up and pack it into itself. Because it's so thin and flexible, again, it's imitating kind of a natural barefoot walk. And also with this shoe, if I walk over like gravel, like a gravel driveway, I'm not going to feel all the spiky bits of gravel, but I'll be able to tell I'm walking over something because the sole is somewhat thin. It still protects my foot, but I have more of a feeling of sensation than I do in a full shoe with a thick sole. This might not be everybody's cup of tea, but these have been fantastic for me. So anyway, next video, a review specifically of their sneaker called the Lems Primal. This is not a sponsored video. I get nothing from Lems, but I will put a link in the description below to the Lems website. I will say, based on my use of the Primal sneaker and of the Mariner boat shoe, the reviews on the Lem Sites are spot on about both shoes. So if you're uncertain about them, read the reviews. Basically, other than getting your foot used to the zero drop in the shape of the shoe, these really don't need breaking in. These do. But they end up being really comfortable. So more on that in my later videos coming soon.